Louis was infertile, yet I was pregnant. Cautiously, I asked him, "Do you want a child?" He replied coldly, "I won't have children." My vision went dark. That same night, I ran away. Before leaving, I placed a pregnancy test on the table with a note, "I cheated. Don't look for me." I hid in a small southern town to protect the baby. Before the child was even born, a pair of hands suddenly covered my eyes. A man pressed against my back like a damp, lingering ghost and whispered, "Be good. Come home with me, we can pretend none of this ever happened." The kid is so cute. Isn't the country promoting childbirth? I want one too. After dinner, I lay on the couch scrolling through videos. I stumbled across an adorable little girl. Big eyes, fair skin, sweet and well-behaved. I tapped like. She was so cute. I loved her instantly. I wanted to have a child like that too. Louis had just finished clearing the table. He sat beside me and saw my comment. His gaze deepened, though he said nothing. Remembering something, I straightened up and tugged at his sleeve. "Why that expression? Don't you think she's adorable?" Louis replied perfunctorily, I didn't give up. "Don't brush me off like that. Answer properly." This time, Louis didn't even look at my phone. He said flatly, "I don't like children." My breath hitched. His expression was nothing like his earlier nonchalance. I could tell, this time, he meant it. He truly did not like children. Trying to sound casual, I asked, "Why not? Isn't she adorable? Pretty, quiet, what's there to dislike?" Louis said, "Do I need a reason not to like them?" I couldn't reply. Silence spread between us, broken only by the child's sweet voice in the video calling the person behind the camera Mommy. I grew annoyed and swiped to the next video. Maybe because I rarely like videos, the moment I liked that one, the algorithm flooded my feed with cute kids. Last time it was a little girl, this time, an adorable little boy. Maybe Louis preferred boys over girls? Unconvinced, I tugged his sleeve again. "What about this one? He's really cute too." As always, Louis said, "I don't like them." Maybe, he just didn't like other people's children? As I scrolled absent-mindedly, a thought surfaced. If it were his child, would he react differently? I didn't tug his sleeve again. I waited until he finished what he was doing. When he bent down to kiss me, my thoughts scattered. Wrapped in his arms, breath unsteady, I murmured, "Do you want a child of your own?" Louis ruffled my hair. "Why are you still hung up on this? I don't like children, boys or girls. I won't have kids." I froze. Thankfully, in our current position, my face was hidden against his chest. My hand drifted subconsciously to my stomach, then recoiled as though burned. He didn't like children. My mood sank. I no longer felt like scrolling. I muttered that I was tired and went to the bedroom to bathe and sleep. Lying under the covers, my mind replayed Louis's words. He didn't like children. He didn't like any children. And he would never have a child. My eyes burned. I almost cried. I blinked hard until the urge subsided. Sleep. Just sleep. After sleeping, things would feel normal again. I had barely closed my eyes when a familiar scent, bitter orange, wrapped around me in a warm embrace. Louis murmured against my ear, his voice low and gentle, "I'm not arguing with you on purpose. I really don't like children. And I'm infertile. I can't have kids. Let's not fight over this, okay?" His words didn't comfort me, they froze me solid. He said, he was infertile? He couldn't have children? But. I glanced at the trash can nearby. Inside was a used pregnancy test. 2 red lines. Mine. I was unmistakably pregnant. I was pregnant. Louis and I had been together almost 5 years. For the first 2, he took precautions. Then one day, he simply stopped. I thought he was tired of making concessions and wanted me to compromise instead. Since he was the one providing for me, I didn't argue. Quietly, I started buying emergency contraception, reminding myself to take it afterward. But every time I left the pill on the bedside table, by night, it would be in the trash. Louis felt no guilt at all. He only said, "Don't take those. They're bad for you." But getting pregnant and having an abortion is even worse for my body. Louis was forceful. No matter how many times I bought pills or hid them, he always found them. Eventually, I gave up. Fine, then. If I couldn't take birth control, he would just have to take responsibility if I got pregnant. Yet after all these years, I never conceived. I thought the heavens had spared me. Who knew Louis was infertile? If he's infertile, how am I pregnant? I had only ever been with him. I had never even held another man's hand. There was no drunken blackout, no memory gaps, nothing that could explain being with someone else. But a few days ago, my period still hadn't come. I opened my tracking app, 10 days late. Late period plus no contraception equals high chance of pregnancy. I ordered a pregnancy test. Followed the instructions. And within minutes, 2 bright lines appeared. 2 lines meant, pregnancy. The moment I realized I was pregnant, I slipped instantly into the role of a mother. I could almost see a tiny life growing vigorously inside me. A faint heartbeat seemed to echo through my flesh, landing softly against my eardrums. That was, my child. Louis isn't my child. But now, there was a problem. Louis was infertile, and he disliked children. How was I supposed to tell him? I had originally planned to surprise him in 2 days, on my birthday. But what was meant to be a surprise had become a shock. Telling him now would be the worst possible choice. This wouldn't do. I was so anxious I didn't know what to do. Fortunately, Louis had arranged to take me on a trip for my birthday. He'd been extremely busy, flying around for work, juggling endless tasks just to clear enough days for our vacation. He worried about me. Every day, he sent message after message right on schedule. Only when he flew across the ocean did I finally get some breathing room. The time difference made our routines misalign. I avoided video calls. My replies became perfunctory, and he had no choice but to accept them. I was too tense and overwhelmed to deal with him. But perhaps this was for the best. While he was away, I finally had time to think clearly. He hadn't known I was pregnant when I asked him before. If he knew, perhaps he would answer differently. Like a parent who insists they dislike cats, yet once their child brings home a kitten, they become the one who spoils it most. Louis might be the same. Once I thought of it that way, the knot in my chest gradually unraveled. Something so important should be discussed honestly, face to face. That night during our video call, I was visibly more relaxed, and Louis noticed. What happened? Something good? Want to share it with me? Resting my chin on my hand, I said, I figured something out. Softly, he asked, what is it? I'm not telling you. Louis pretended to be troubled. So you have a secret now? Yes. A very big secret. So big, how big? He asked leisurely. I made a circle with my fingers. Big enough to scare you. We chatted idly for a while. It was getting late. He had to work, I needed to sleep. He waited for me to end the call. Right before I hung up, I smiled brightly and said, that secret I mentioned. I'll tell you when you come back. And don't even think about cutting work short because of it, okay, my dear sponsor? You have to make money to support me. And our child. That night, I had a beautiful dream, Louis cradling our baby tenderly, feeding it as carefully as if it were made of glass. He would make a wonderful father. Feeling happy again, I grew restless and ended up attending a social banquet, one I usually ignored. They always sent me invitations anyway, printing one extra never hurt. No one expected me to show up today, let alone so early. I lowered my head and tasted the tiny cakes, comparing the flavors. Then I heard Louis's name. I heard Louis rejected another marriage alliance. What's surprising? He's rejected tons. Why are you shocked? This time is different. The Lin family's daughter fell for him at first sight. She's an only child and, not exactly exceptional. Letting her marry Louis is basically handing over the Lin family. So what? Do you think Louis needs the Lin family? After all these years, don't you know? He's fiercely loyal to his girlfriend. A soft laugh. Girlfriend? More like his pet canary. If she were really his girlfriend, they would have married already. Dating for 5 years without marriage? He's just playing with her. The cream in my mouth instantly lost all sweetness. I pricked up my ears. Exactly. Why aren't they married? Isn't the girl worried? She's missing her chance. If I were her, since Louis likes her, she should just give him a baby and secure her position. Louis would never force a woman he likes to have an abortion. After this comment, the other voice oddly fell silent. Instinctively, I touched my stomach. Louis loved me. He wouldn't make me abort. Even strangers could see that. I had just breathed a little easier when someone else whispered, TCH, that's not certain. If she's pregnant, well. The voice dropped so low it was almost inaudible, but my hearing was sharp. It might not just be about abortion. It could be, 2 lives ended. A gasp. What? Why? Louis is ruthless. He can't tolerate betrayal. Anyone who's betrayed him before never got a chance to explain, he dealt with them cleanly. They kept gossiping. I couldn't listen anymore. My chest tightened painfully. I no longer wanted dessert. I shouldn't have come tonight. After a good night's sleep, only 1 day later, my entire mindset had changed again. I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. Humans think too much at night. Everything I overheard looped endlessly in my mind. Marriage alliance. Pet canary. Not married. Just playing. Those phrases spun around and morphed into new ones, abortion. Betrayal. No chance to explain. 2 lives ended. Hesitating, I opened Louis's chat window. His last message was simply, good night. I remembered again, he said he was infertile. I walked onto the balcony. The autumn night was clear, moonlit, starlight traveling across countless light years to reach my eyes. The universe was vast, yet there was no safe place for this child. I touched my stomach. The child's father didn't want them. But I did. I could raise this baby alone. In the quiet of night, I pulled out a suitcase and began packing. I would leave tomorrow. Leave this place. Leave Louis. From now on, this would no longer be his child. It would belong only to me. Before leaving, I hesitated for a moment, then placed a note and the pregnancy test on the table. If I vanished without a word, he might think I'd been kidnapped or harmed, and he'd move heaven and earth to find me. The chances of being discovered would be far too high. I cheated. The child isn't yours. Don't look for me. After writing those words, I took one last look at the home I had lived in for 5 years. Every corner held traces of my life. But none of it would have anything to do with me anymore. Goodbye, little home. Goodbye, Lewis. Needham Town was a 4th or 5th tier place, a small southern town with nothing special about it. Its area was tiny, its infrastructure modest, its scenery plain and ordinary. On a map, it was the kind of place your eyes would skip right over. Housing prices weren't high or low, cost of living was just average, and even people looking for so-called lying flat sanctuaries online wouldn't choose a place like this. There weren't many job opportunities either, young people left, and the elderly stayed behind. It was a town frozen somewhere in the early 2000s. Shuttered storefronts, quiet streets, and an occasional electric tricycle buzzing past. On the street where I settled, only a noodle shop and a small barber shop were open. Across from them stood a convenience store named Linda's Mart. It had once doubled as a pickup point for a delivery service, with a yellow sign still hanging beside the door. Even though that service had long gone bankrupt, the sign remained, perhaps out of forgetfulness, perhaps because removing it no longer mattered. The town was small enough that everyone already knew every shop and every household. No signage was truly necessary. I walked into the noodle shop. It wasn't mealtime, so there were only a few customers. A woman in a padded jacket sat at a table watching a melodramatic microdrama on her phone, the volume turned all the way up. I hadn't even stepped inside when the phone's tiny speaker screamed dramatic lines at me. You want to marry me so badly you'd push Mingzhu downstairs? Shameless. It wasn't me, it really wasn't, she fell on her own. The heroine's protests were cut off by the hero's roar, you really need to be taught a lesson. Then came the sound of heavy rain and rolling thunder. Of course. In these dramas, it always rains when the heroine suffers. The shop owner noticed me and pointed lazily at the menu board without lifting her head. Order whatever you want. I looked up at the dishes and prices. With no customers waiting, I had plenty of time to decide. Fried rice, fried noodles, fried rice cakes, boiled noodles, rice cakes, and a few options served over rice. After browsing for a while, I chose the pork rib noodles, scanned the QR code, and paid. The owner worked slowly. Still holding her phone, she wandered into the kitchen, without pausing her drama. From the sound of it, the heroine had now been sent to a disciplinary institution and was enduring all kinds of torment. Not really my kind of plot. I turned away and sat at a table near the door. A sticky layer of grease coated the tabletop. I wiped it with tissues, but years of buildup didn't come off. I sighed and used a fresh tissue as a placemat instead. Outside, a yellow electric tricycle drove by. 3 seconds later, a black one. Bored, I began counting every tricycle that passed. When I reached the 18th one, my noodles finally arrived. The pork rib noodles tasted average. Not good, not bad, just like the noodles I ate as a child in small-town shops. It seemed the cook's skills hadn't changed at all over the years. Old eateries in little counties were like that, unimpressive flavor, generous portions. I even finished the pork rib buried beneath the noodles. Scooping through the broth one last time, I found it empty. Putting down my chopsticks, I wiped my mouth and asked the owner, is there any place around here that rents out rooms? She was still glued to her drama. In the short time it took me to finish my bowl, the heroine had already emerged from the disciplinary center, transformed into a cold, robotic version of herself. She no longer called the hero brother, no longer clung to him. Now she addressed him icily as Mr. Shen. The hero noticed the change and became furious. The trope was so classic I almost laughed. It reminded me of when I'd get scolded as a child and fantasize about turning into a cold, emotionless study machine. At that moment, the shop owner finally looked up. Oh, you're looking for a place to rent? I nodded. Yes. How did you end up here? All the young folks have left. Hardly anyone moves in anymore. She pointed the way for me. Try the park over there. Lots of elderly folk have empty houses, they might rent one out. I thanked her, and before leaving, answered her earlier question. I used to live on the other end of the town when I was little. Haven't been back for many years. Is that so? Then after you settle in, come support my shop more often. I smiled and agreed. Before stepping out, I turned back and saw her dragging the progress bar on her drama to catch up on everything she'd missed while talking to me. The heroine once again turned into a cold robot. A distant Mr. Shen echoed faintly, fading as I walked away. It was a beautiful day. No rain. Finding a rental was easy. The landlady was an elderly woman whose children worked in the provincial capital. She had several empty apartments and was more than happy to rent one out. I rented a small unit and walked to a supermarket a few hundred meters away to order essential supplies for delivery. The apartment hadn't been lived in for a while and needed a thorough cleaning. I was lazy, there was no professional cleaning service in town, so hiring a local auntie was just as good. While she cleaned the empty apartment, I wandered around the town from afternoon until dusk. By the time I returned, the place looked refreshed. Standing on the balcony, looking out at the stillness of this little town, I felt a strange sense of dislocation. This was Needham Town, not the bustling imperial capital. I had truly left. When night fell, the town grew even quieter. Hugging a pillow on the bed, I felt a wave of loneliness wash over me. Well, not fully alone. I touched my belly. I had a little one. Life in Needham Town was peaceful. I changed my phone number, only a few close friends could still reach me. They required little emotional energy, reply or don't reply, nothing changed. We never panicked over silence. I lived here for a month, slowly adapting to the town's unhurried rhythm. The only drawback was the poor infrastructure. The town had only a clinic, no hospital. For prenatal checkups, I had to travel to the city center. Maybe I'd lived in the capital too long, the city was so large that even the subway took an hour. I took a taxi for the appointment. After nearly an hour, the driver was grumbling about how far it was. I tried to reassure her. Almost there, just a little longer. Near the drop-off point, I realized I'd been infected by her impatience. I also began feeling the ride was unbearably long. Dizzy from the journey, I got out, entered the hospital, queued up, and finally completed the examination. While waiting in line, I suddenly realized how foolish I was. Why on earth would I choose to come on a weekend? Weekends were the busiest. I'd gotten too comfortable lately and completely lost track of time. I waited bitterly in the long queue. After what felt like forever, I finally finished the checkup. Staring down at the test results in my hands, I shuffled out of the hospital. This city didn't have many top-tier hospitals. People came here from the city, the towns, and even the villages. Everyone around me moved in a rush. I was the only slow one, and bumped into someone. I apologized quietly and stepped aside to go around. Earlier, I had noticed a street near the hospital where I could grab something to eat before heading home. I didn't turn on the map, just followed my memory. But at some point, I ended up in a dead-end alley. Turns out I had no sense of direction. With a sigh, I opened the map and rerouted myself. As I exited the alley, a sudden thought struck me. The person I had bumped into back in the hospital smelled familiar. It was that faint, bittersweet scent of bitter orange. Louis had a cologne with that scent. Though, he rarely used it. I had bought it for him, after all, yet I barely saw him wear it. So much effort wasted just picking it out. I shook the thought away and continued toward the food street. A man's back came into view on the roadside. It looked strikingly like Louis's, just a little thinner. Great. A whole month of not thinking about him, and today, I couldn't stop. Was this what they called the Proust effect? I shook my head, forcibly pushing Louis out of my mind. Food first. I stepped out of the alley and headed toward the snack street. Just as I took a step and glanced down to check how many meters till the next turn. Suddenly, I couldn't see. A warm, calloused hand had covered my eyes. That familiar bitter orange scent wafted into my nose. I froze. Before my mind could react, my body already recognized who was behind me. His chin rested on my shoulder. He clung to my back like a ghost. His breath, icy and damp, skimmed the back of my neck. The hand over my eyes moved down slowly. It brushed over my lips, down my neck, and finally settled on my belly. Louis's voice was colder than the harshest days of winter. You're pregnant? You cheated on me with a man who can't even accompany you to a prenatal checkup? Louis stroked my belly gently, then gave a cold, quiet laugh. A man like that, what use is he? He was right. No prenatal checkup, no support. Utterly useless. Hadn't I already thrown that kind of man away? Louis launched into full sarcasm mode. Jessica, your taste in men has really gone downhill. I fell silent for a moment. I know. You know? Louis's tone turned even icier. I asked in return, then what do you want me to say? He let go of me and stepped around to face me. It had been over a month since I last saw him. The moment I got a good look at Louis, I was taken aback. In my eyes, Louis had always been someone who cared deeply about appearances. He was a bit of a clean freak, a bit obsessive. He kept himself groomed and polished every day, always appearing in public at his absolute best, never disheveled. But now, standing in front of me, his stubble hadn't been shaved in days. A shadow of blue covered his chin. Dark circles loomed under his eyes. He'd lost a significant amount of weight. And then it hit me. That back I had seen earlier, the one I thought resembled Louis's but thinner, it was him. What had he done to himself? Even when he was pulling all-nighters for work, he never looked this rough. I hesitated, but out of the remnants of our past, I asked softly, "Are you okay?" I wasn't sure what nerve I hit, but the moment I asked, his emotions broke free like a dam bursting. "You have the nerve to ask me if I'm okay?" So, I wasn't allowed to ask. Fine. I won't ask again. Forget I said anything, I muttered. But strangely, Louis actually responded. Before his words came, his arms wrapped around me. His voice, hoarse, weary, clinging, spoke against my ear. And perhaps it was just my imagination, but I thought I heard him choke back a sob. I'm not okay, he said. Ever since you left, I haven't been okay at all. Jessica, is this the surprise you said you were going to give me? Because I don't like it, not one bit. It had only been a month since all this happened. But it felt like a lifetime ago. I paused, trying to recall. Yes, before he left, I had told him during a video call, I have a surprise for you when you come back. What I meant to say was, I'm pregnant. What he came home to was a note saying I had cheated, was pregnant, and had run away. The surprise had turned into a shock. And now I realized, just a little too late, that maybe I owed him an apology. Maybe, I really had hurt him badly. I didn't know how to explain it all. My thoughts spun in circles, and in the end, the only thing I managed to say was, can you ease up a bit? You're holding me too tight, I can't breathe. Louis, ever sharp-tongued, replied, hold it in. Fine. I'll hold it in. I'd already given him a terrible scare. The fact that he hadn't strangled me yet was a miracle. What harm was there in letting him hug me for a while longer? Truthfully, he did ease his grip, quite a bit. His arms now felt like they used to. Warm, broad, familiar. When he had finally held me enough, he let go. Where are you staying? He asked. I didn't answer. I just looked at him silently. That alone was enough to set him off again. He jumped to conclusions. What? You don't want me to know where you live now? Is that guy, the other man, living with you? You don't want me to see him? 3 accusations, back to back.